the National Museum of the United States Air Force. Today, the Vice Commander of the 88th Air Base Wing is hosting the second annual Holocaust Remembrance Day. Welcome and thank you for coming. Today we're going to hear from three of our guests, these folks right here, who are going to share with us their personal experiences as they relate to the Holocaust. Please take a moment at this time to silence all electronic devices. I know nobody uses a beeper anymore, so cell phones. Please note that due to the sensitive and personal nature of these presentations, we will be limiting entrance and exit of folks from the auditorium. At this time, I'd like to take a moment to thank our distinguished visitors to the museum this morning. I'd like to thank especially our program volunteers that have for years and years supported our Holocaust exhibit program. And I'd also like to thank members of the committee who helped put this program together today. So without any further delay, please welcome to the podium the Vice Commander, 88th Air Base Wing, Colonel Elena Oberg.
Thank you, Erin. So this is just great to be here today. Truly, it's just an honor to be here and participating. I would be remiss if I didn't say thank you to the National Museum of the United States Air Force for hosting this. This is great to have this venue and to have it in this place and time. Elie Wiesel said, many of you have read his works, it's the duty of the survivor to bear witness, to bear testimony to what happened. It's the duty to bear testimony. And so but just because it's your duty, some people don't step up to that duty. It's so difficult. And so I just really want to commend our panelists today for being willing to share in their duty to being with us today to talk about your experiences, your very personal experiences. Each year we do take a moment on Holocaust Remembrance Day and pause and remember those victims, those who were, not just the victims, but those families that were personally and deeply affected. It is a day of remembrance. It's a day of thinking. And our panel members will be talking about what is truly one of the darkest periods in our world's history. It's more than a story, though, of murder. It's more about the resiliency, too, of those who survived, those who never disavowed their convictions or gave up. It's about those who, when called, did what was right. And for us to listen and inspire to that. Those, when they were called, they did what was right. So it's like I said, it's our responsibility to ensure that the voices of those who can no longer speak are heard, and that today's generation and tomorrow's generations can understand what happened and never forget the atrocity of what happened. And once again, to be thinking about how when they are called, how you might respond. For the younger members of our audience today, today's panel discussion may feel like something that happened a long time ago, years and years ago. I know even when I was a child, it felt like it was a long time ago, because when you're a child, anything that happened not in your lifetime occurred a long time ago, right? But it's important to note that these are strong memories. These are strong memories of those who experienced the Holocaust directly or their family members experienced it, and it made a deep and resounding impact to them, and it stays with them, and it stays with them for the rest of their lives. Events like the Holocaust are one of the reasons why we serve as members of the military. We have a duty to protect our nation and a duty to ensure that this part of our history never repeats itself. Those who are called, are we going to do the right thing? I really want to say thank you to the organizing committee for putting this together. Just truly well done. To Kelly Owens, to Aaron Craig, to Lori Sargent. There's a lot of moving parts that are involved with something like this, but it is so important to bring us all together to tell this story, to talk about these events, so that we all understand. And like I said, we all are mentally ready so that when we need to do it, we can step up. Now, it is truly an honor to introduce someone who's going to introduce our panel members, and that is our 88th Air Base Wing Command Chief, the truly awesome, the truly irreplaceable Lisa Arnold. But please welcome her, because I think that you're going to hear her words about our panel members, and it's just It is truly inspiring who we sit amongst today. So with that, Chief Arnold, come on up here and let's get us started, okay? Thanks so much.
Good morning. Because of the seriousness and the importance of why we're here today, I'm going to read verbatim from the script and for the words of our outstanding panel members. From 1933 to 1945, there occurred a systematic and bureaucratic enacted persecution and murder of millions across Europe. 6 million of these individuals were Jews. Others impacted by this event were those classified as racially inferior or disabled. Persons of Polish and Russian descent were also targeted, as were those who had different political, ideological, and behavioral backgrounds. Persons who were assigned these categories were enslaved in concentration and work camps, tortured, and killed. They lost their families, friends, and possessions. At war's end, United States soldiers entered into the camps to find the atrocities that resulted from human indifference to other human beings. The Holocaust is more than a Jewish tragedy. It is a human disaster of unprecedented proportion in the modern world. Please welcome our next speaker, Mr. Henry Williamson, who saw the remnants of the damage done by the Holocaust. Serving with Charlie Company, 272nd Infantry Regiment, 69th Division, Mr. Williamson was a camp liberator, one of the first U.S. servicemen to arrive and assist those imprisoned in Buchenwald concentration camp. Please welcome Mr. Williamson.
Thank you very much. They call me Henry, but I was labeled with the name Hank from day one almost. When I was first born, that's a Hank. But anyway, it's a privilege to be here, to see all your smiling faces. I was born in Providence, Rhode Island in 1925. You were all there, weren't you, in 1925? Which mathematically makes me 90 years old. Wow. And as the old saying goes, if I thought I was going to live this long, I would have taken better care of myself. But I'm going to cut it short because I usually have a 3-hour talk, and I know you don't want to be here that long. But I was drafted into World War II after my first semester in college. I went to an Ivy League college in Rhode Island, Brown University, and so I was late in the war, 1944, and I was sent to basic training down in Camp Macon, Georgia, which is about halfway to Atlanta, and spent 17 weeks there. I went in as a chubby teenager, and I came out 17 weeks later looking like a thermometer. But that part was good. So I was sent over to Europe after that 17 weeks of fun at Camp Wheeler in Macon, Georgia. I was sent over to Europe as a replacement, infantry replacement. That was my training. I was an infantry soldier. And I think we spent about 14 days getting across the Atlantic. We almost got sunk by a German U-boat that hit an aircraft carrier instead of us, which was very fortunate because if they had hit us, I wouldn't be standing here today. But I arrived in Europe, and I was assigned to the 69th Infantry Division, part of the First Army. And guess what? Even though I was late getting into the war in late 44, I got there just in time for the Battle of the Bulge. Anyone ever remember or know what Battle of the Bulge? Yeah. How old is this group? Very young. So anyway, I was I joined up with the 69th Infantry, and I got there just in time for the Battle of the Bulge. The Battle of the Bulge, I'm still in the Battle of the Bulge. But the Battle of the Bulge was Hitler's last gasp to keep the war going. That was his last effort. Because we thought it was all over. And then all of a sudden, here's these enemy troops coming in. Well, I thought they thought it was over. No, it's not over. And that was a grisly, tough period from December 44 until April 45 or May 8th, when the European war was over. And what made it tough was not only spending most of your time keeping alive, but it was bitterly cold. You can imagine cold. It was just freezing cold. And it was tough. I was 19 years old then in combat. That's pretty young, right? I was a little tougher then. We had a guy in our squad who was 38. Guess what we called him?
The old man.
The old man. You're 38 years old. I mean, 38 years old today sounds like a child. But that was the comparison. And it was a very difficult period. We thought we were going to have a kind of a piece of cake when we got over there, and it didn't turn out to be a piece of cake. It turned out to be brutally tough and dangerous. You know, one of the worst things in war is when you lose some of your friends, people you've become familiar with and good friends and so forth. And you might ask the question, where's Joe? I haven't seen Joe lately. Where's Joe? Joe was killed this morning. Oh, it's like a pain for you to lose a friend, and that's part of war. And like I said, we spent most of our time staying alive, and we had some very special things happen to us in our 69th Division. One of them was we wound up being the first Americans to meet the Russians on the Elbe River in Torgau. How many have been to Torgau?
Not many.
How old do you say that? Okay. Torgau. And they're a different kind of people. Because it was East meets West. This is the official end of World War II. It's all over. We'll meet the Russians. And all the big name brass came in. General Eisenhower, our commander-in-chief, General Patton with his 3 stars, General Bradley, and others. So it was a historical occasion. And I never saluted so much in my life when these big name brass crossed the bridge, you know, it is. So my salute is very good because I've had so much practice. But that's some of the highlights. But you know, as important as that was, and as fortunate it was to survive through that bulge, to get through that battle, get through that horrible fight. But at 19 years old, the whole thing becomes a big wake-up call because you've led such a sheltered life until you got to the war and all of that, and then suddenly you're faced with death. I remember the first time I went to the front lines. When we got there, we had a whole crowd of enemies surrender because they knew we were green troops. They knew we were scared. Coming on. But the sobering sight when I got there was here's this white, everything is white snow. It was the Siegfried Line, so-called, with all these obstacles to keep tanks from coming in and so forth. There's the snow, and there's dead soldiers, ours, theirs, And you know how white a sheet is? You look at their face, you know they're dead. You know they're dead. So the reality of why, the real reason you come over here, you're going to be in combat with these people. And you could be dead in 5 seconds. That was the horrible reality of war. So these are some of the highlights and some of the situations we had and some of the feelings that we had. But you know, the biggest part of my life changed in a major way when we were notified back in April 1945. April 1945, I was sent with a detail of maybe 6 or 8 men to Buchenwald, which is right south of Berlin, Germany. And we had an officer, I think he was a first lieutenant, and the rest of us were non-commissioned people. And our job was to liberate the camp of Buchenwald. And liberate it by way of basically taking the living and putting them on this big, long freight train, maybe 1,000. And we were to take them to another country. Men, women, and children, barely alive. Barely. Have you ever seen anyone who's barely alive other than in a hospital bed or something like that? People are barely alive. Men, women, children. Get them on the train, on the train. And these trains were called 40 and 8s. Each of these cars will hold 40 men or 8 horses. That's it. And you know, the first instructions we were given, don't feed these people any regular food. If you've been starving for weeks and endless time, can you imagine how difficult it was, as hungry as you might be, to eat a big dinner and load your body up that never saw food like this in a long time? They can't tolerate it. And we heard stories of some soldiers who out of sympathy, here, have a bite of that. Go ahead. And they did that, and they either got sick, and some of them were kind of on the verge of dying because they were can't eat that. So we had to reduce their diet down to either hot soup or hot soup. That was it. That's all they could handle. So you take these things for granted. But here's the crux of my story. April 1945, okay? I was 20 years old. Think about that combination. Male, 20 years old. Okay? I don't know about you guys, and this is nothing against you, but it happened to me. I was stuck on myself. I thought I was the best thing for the human race. I'd look at myself in the mirror all the time, and boy, wow, these people, do they know what they're waiting for or what they're going to be surprised about? I was stuck on myself when I first got there, okay? What is this? Where are we going? To Buchenwald? Where is that? You know, I didn't know what Buchenwald. I thought it might have been a hot fudge sundae or something. No, Buchenwald. What did I see at the Buchenwald? I saw people. I saw faces. I saw human beings. You know how they looked at us? They looked at us like, thank God. Here's finally somebody who's going to help us. And so, with that happening, it was like a bodily process. Handsome Hank turned his spotlight from himself to other people. Other people. My whole life just went over to them. I obviously didn't know any of those people, but they were human beings. And I had the privilege of going to a death camp, to Buchenwald. About 1,000 people on this train. And every day we'd lose a few more, you know. What about car number 12? Well, we lost 2 last night. And what about car number 6? Well, can you kind of sense what this felt like? I mean, in your imagination, which is hard to do in a nice, beautiful theater like this, those nice, comfortable seats. But my spotlight went from Handsome Hank to the prisoners. Like I said, they were barely alive. You know what's tough to do? Is to say no when a child asks for candy, to say no to a smiling child. Chocolate, chocolate. Well, maybe later. Maybe later. You know. Don't want to disappoint them, but they wanted that chocolate. Kids, I think, like chocolate more than anybody else. As you get older, you have less chocolate.
No.
I'm trying to paint a picture for you.
Me too.
I'm trying to give you a feeling that you were there. I'm trying to bring you there with me. I want you to be there with me and kind of sense, holy mackerel, 20 years old in 1945. The guy is 90. He's standing up on the stage. I'm only good for about 3 more seconds, then I'm going to collapse. But, you know, these are the stories that mean something to me. I don't want to, you know, these people here have been so great. They've got marvelous stories and marvelous history. But I want you to get a feel of what it was like to go to Buchenwald. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I missed a lot of my friends when they would get killed. I remember one night we took a long ride on a tank. And the reason our infantry guys rode on a tank is because the war was winding down. And the enemy was retreating. And we had to keep up with them somehow, so we rode on top of tanks. This one night we rode all night on a tank. We had strapped ourselves to the tank so we wouldn't fall off. That wouldn't be pretty good, would it? And this morning we came up this rise. Came up this rise in this mountain, this hill. The sun was coming up, and we saw this smoke just evaporating from this giant tent. And we hadn't eaten in several days, you know, which was not unusual. And guess what that tent was? The tent was a mess tent with food, real food we hadn't seen in a long time. Bacon and eggs, pancakes, rolls, coffee, orange juice. I mean, it was like heaven. Can you imagine what heaven would be like in a situation like that? So we chowed down. Probably ate too much. Well, it was almost like the prisoners eating food in a death camp. We couldn't, in a way, we couldn't handle that food either, but we did. We forced ourselves. But that's some of the experiences in my life. And here, 70 years later, I'm still remembering about the breakfast. I'm still remembering about hot coffee. It's the simple things in life that mean something to you as you get older and you mature into a total person. You think about the little things like this. I don't know what Hitler was doing, or I didn't know what Goering was doing, or some of these high-ranking people in the German army. I remember one night I was so tired during the war, I didn't care if Hitler was sitting right here. I'm going to sleep. And one night we went on this all-night march. Here you are walking at night. You haven't slept in a long time, and you're hungry, and guess what? You fall asleep walking. Has anyone ever fallen asleep walking in here? Not lately. You usually go to bed, right? But we were falling asleep walking. We had this older man in our midst. And we kept complaining about who's running the show. Why are we walking at night? What a dumb idea to do this. Why are we doing this? And we kept talking to this older man. And he said, well, I don't know. A couple of days later, we saw that older man again. Guess what? He was a full colonel. He said, well, men, everything all right now? I said, yes, sir, it's very all right now. Isn't that interesting how your life can unfold? I don't know what's ahead for me. I'm in my 91st year. Yeah, right, I forgot that. I'm on my way to 91. And I have a friend who was in World War II in the Air Force. He'd be 99 in July.
Right.
And I said, I think you're going to make it. He said, what do you mean I'm making it? So he's got his 100th birthday already planned. And guess who's on the guest list? I'm referred to as just a kid. I'm just a kid.
Right.
Yeah. You're only 91. I'm 100. And we have a guy on our monthly breakfast over in Germantown, Ohio, the last Saturday of every month at 9:30 a.m. See, there's my God. You're getting rid of me. And this guy is 101. And I said, what kind of vitamins are you taking? One a day brand, or what is it? Thanks for letting me have a few laughs, but that's my personality. I can't change it. I've been talking about a horrible experience, and I made it kind of comical. But I don't mean I'm not putting that down at all. I have so much respect for those people. And like you say, it changed my life from Handsome Hank to someone to spend the rest of your life reaching out to people in any way you can. If they don't like your jokes, you don't tell jokes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Williamson. I appreciate you sharing your story with us, and I want to thank our other guests as well for doing that. At this point, we have some questions that some people have prepared and submitted to our committee here that we'd love to ask if we could do that. Some of them are for all of you, and some for each of you. I guess a good one to start with is Mrs. Brewster. Why do you think your family was different from any of the others who turned a blind eye to what was going on? Why do you think they stepped up and took those actions?
Well, they were not unique. There were quite a few people who did things, who hid Jewish people, who, worked in the undergrounds and so forth. I think it has to be a compassion. You have to have a compassion with people or for people. And I think that was something they just could not stand by and do nothing. Their friends, some of their friends were disappearing. So much meanness was going on. And they, I asked my dad that number of times, why did you do it? Because it was a danger to your life if you did commit. And he said, we just couldn't help and stand by.
Thank you, Ms. Brewster. I appreciate that. Dr. Friedman, did you follow the Nuremberg trials after? I mean, what was your kind of reaction? Do you feel that there was some measure of justice that you've seen?
I was very young when the Nuremberg trials took place. However, I've watched the movie and read the books. There really is no justice on earth for someone who could be responsible for thousands and thousands of deaths. And however, there's a higher court that may rule on them. I feel more sorry for their descendants who have to live with the knowledge that they had a father and in some cases a mother who worked in a death camp. It has affected the psyche because I've interviewed young Germans who are young people who weren't even alive then, and they carry much of that guilt themselves. Because looking at it from historical perspective, they can see, what was done was so horribly wrong. But that's pretty much what you have to look at history in the total picture. But the understanding of why people who were going to church at the same time would do these things, it's probably an unanswerable question.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Williamson, when you returned from World War II, what was America's society's reaction to the atrocities and what had happened in the Holocaust?
Well, for a large part, when we were in combat in the thick of the fighting, trying to keep alive, our thoughts were not drawn to the death camps. We had the Stars and Stripes, which was a newspaper, but it somehow never really covered the atrocities and the death camps as much as maybe they should have, or maybe it's best they didn't. But a lot of or it seems most of the Germans were trying to be ignorant of the fact that there was anything like that going on. And I think it was General Patton and others that marched some of those local citizens through the death camps, and this is what you pretend not to know anything about. Here it is. I mean, it's kind of a mystery in there.
This question is for all of you, I guess, in each of your own personal stories. What lessons of resilience have you learned that you apply to your life now or have applied in the past?
What was the first part of that question?
What lessons of resilience have you learned that you've applied
Resilience?
to your life?
Resilience. In your
Don't use those big words. Well, speaking for myself, a World War II vet is becoming an antique. You know, we were in World War II, not one, two. You never forget it. You never forget your experience. Just like I shared with you today, I remember all these little details. Those are the things that you remember, the little things that happened to you. And so we talk about resilience. Are you talking about successfully living your life beyond, you know, I remember when I first got home, I had nightmares. I'd wake up the whole neighborhood, not just my family, the whole neighborhood woke up. And, but you know, like always, time has a way of reducing the pain, reducing the reaction from that, and giving you a more of a comfort feeling.
Yes, resilience of the spirit. I've often speak about that when I speak to groups, because I feel that every person has within them the resilience of the spirit to come through really difficult times. And if any one of the lessons, of the many lessons what we try to teach young people through teaching the Holocaust, is that there is a resilience of the human spirit in all of us, and that sometimes we have to dig down deep to find it. My personal way of dealing with what happened to me, my family, and my husband's family has been to turn around and teach by being asked to teach. I didn't volunteer in the first place. I am a volunteer, but I wanted to find some common ground so that young people would be aware and realize that it is in their hands to some degree what their future will be. And that, you know, this exhibit that I curated, that some of you will see, and all of the teachings that we do is directed at hoping that, even though it doesn't look like it some days, that we hope to make the world a better place. In Hebrew, there's such a thing as, it's called tikkun olam, which means helping heal the world. That's sort of my very small way of trying to live with what I know happened.
Right.
Well, for me, it's very similar. Trying to be the best person that you can be, avoid any kind of bullying, any kind of negative perspection to other people, be receptive to people who are different from you. That was one of the biggest lessons, I think, from my family that I learned, that we are all human beings, and to accept someone else who's different from you, to, as you said earlier, to be friends, to that people that initially were not necessarily your enemy, but certainly not positive toward you. And my parents were tremendous examples of that. And at Thanksgiving, we always had a couple of empty chairs, that if we heard of someone who didn't have anywhere to go, whether it was UD students or, you know, it was someone heard about someone that they didn't have anywhere to go, you know, they would invite them. My parents would invite them to spend Thanksgiving. And we've had some amazing, amazing Thanksgivings because of the inclusion of these people. For me, I became a teacher, and teaching about the Holocaust and about the different experiences, that amazing thing that an individual can make a difference. I think so many of us think, oh, we just can't, you know, we can't be part of that, we can participate. And so, but an individual, you know, a little thing. I told my students that if you see something happening or someone being put down or made fun of or so, don't participate in that. Maybe even go to that person and smile at them and maybe ask them, you know, if you could sit with them at lunch or so. Something that would be so difficult for many teenagers to do, you know, to go against the grain because you want to follow, you know, be like your friends and so. But to just make that little effort to help someone, to be kind to someone, and especially those that other people make fun of. And that's been something that has just been drilled into me, and I feel very strongly about it, and I hope I practice it.
Well, thank you very much for answering our questions. I appreciate it.
Sure.
At this point, I'd like to welcome back to the stage Colonel Oberg. She will make a special presentation for our distinguished guests.
You know, before I just give them a very small token of our esteem, first of all, I don't know if you noticed, but I mean, there's many of us out there, we keep having these things called tears that form in our eyes, and genuinely, I cannot say thank you enough for coming and sharing your time with us. Boy, I was taking some notes because there were so many of the words that you were saying that I wanted to be able to remember at a later date, and I just want to remind all of us of some of those. You said that you could never be as strong as your parents.
Yes.
I think that your parents would be very joyful that you never had to be tested the way that they did, and I'm actually probably pretty confident that your strength is very much evident, and they would be very proud of you, Ms. Brewster.
Sure.
And I think that the theme of bullying, Dr. Friedman, I think both of you alluded to that, you know, that we have you know, limited time to gladden the hearts of those who travel the way with us. Sometimes that's a saying, and really that you really are struck by how limited that time is, and you have to take advantage of every moment. And then finally, that you spend your life reaching out to people. You know, that's just I think that we have heard that repeated over and over again. And so please, all of you, if you can join me in what I know is just the smallest token, truly, which is our applause. But join me in a round of applause for our incredible speakers today.
I feel so insignificant.
Now, it is truly an honor to present to you the coin of the 88th Air Base Wing. This represents our entire Wright-Patterson Air Force Base community, though. Before I present it, though, I just also want to say thank you to the museum for hosting this, and for our organizers, for Kelly and Aaron and Lori, for creating a space so that we can experience something truly transcendent, which is your words today. So, like I said, on behalf of the 88th Air Base Wing, for Colonel John DeVilliers, but all of Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, I hope you'll accept this small token of our appreciation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, girl, I can hardly breathe. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Now, do we have to follow the tradition of the coin?
Well, you can try.
Thank you, Colonel Oberg. That concludes our presentation today. I want to thank you all so much for your attendance. If you'd like to visit the Holocaust Museum exhibit, you can exit through these doors in the back of the museum.